We were doing a lot of improv. That's when I met Robin, because he used to come to the Comedy Store
Comedy Store in La Jolla.
in La Jolla and perform. And there were a couple of different people who were working, so we had different groups, again, with NEA money, where you go and you do, you're supposed to explain to school children about ore, you know. So you go and you'd write a show and you'd go to some school and you go, I'm a mountain, and within me lies ore, gold, beneath the earth, alive in its own glory. And you'd explain how ore is taken out of the earth. Or you'd go and you'd talk about, coal. Not this kind of coal, but coal. I mean, you're working. It's
Yeah.
good. Um, and what else? We did a couple of different crazy things. So it was a group of us, and we morphed into something called spontaneous combustion.
Right.
And from there, we did lots of different weird plays. And then some of us would go over to the Comedy Store and start improv and do stuff. And that's how I met Robin. And just had a good time. And then, a couple of years went by, I met another guy who said, hey, how you doing? I was like, how you doing? And we hung out because he came down from San Francisco with another group. And I had been performing with a partner. I had a partner at the time. So Don Victor and I were performing around, and this guy that was really kind of interesting started hanging out, and they came down from San Francisco and did their shows, and I let them stay on my floor because I lived in a tree with my daughter. And so all those performers from San Francisco, the Blake Street Hawkeyes, came and stayed and lived on my floor. And so we had some fun, smoked a lot of pot and talked, and then they came and saw my show and they said, you should come back with us. You should come stay with us and do all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, So I said to my kid, who was probably 7 by then, what do you think? You want to try something new? She was like, where are we going? I said, well, it's San Francisco. I don't know. You want to see what it is? And she was like, yeah. So we packed up a Volkswagen that had no brakes, that you had to stop with a handbrake, and we drove to San Francisco to Project Artaud, which was a building, a warehouse building that was 1, 2, 3, I think it was 6 blocks. And it was filled with dancers and performers and singers and writers and playwrights and the Pickle Family Circus. And just, it was filled with all kinds of stuff. And it was just amazing. It was an amazing time. And the guy that I went up there with got me a place to stay with some friends of his who were gone for several months, and we stayed in their apartment. The guy and I decided we were going to try to make a go of it. My kid liked him, and I liked him, and so we then moved to Berkeley with the Blake Street Hawkeyes, where we were doing all kinds of Artaudian poetry and, singing sound poems, all kinds of crazy, wonderful stuff. My partner, Dave Shine, had written a piece for himself to do called Out Comes Butch. And he said, well, you should put something together so that we can go tour together. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I kept saying, yeah, I'll do it. And then we went to Europe with his show and spent some time in France and spent some time in London. And I started writing about the trip. And so we went to Germany.
Right.
We went we hit like 7 places because you do an exchange, right? So you'd go to Germany and exchange your space with theirs. So you'd live in their space, they'd live in your space, and you perform for however many. We went to Amsterdam, where again we lived in this guy's house, and he was performing in Berkeley, and so we got to spend a lot of time